but surely, I'm getting used to this new night shift job, but I've been doing an awful lot of running around lately. Water break!
The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
So as you can guess from how quiet this channel's been since I went back to night shift on January 15th, 2018, yeah, putting that in for future reference in case people watch this video years from now, of course, it's been a bit of an adjustment, and while I'm still adjusting to the radical changes in what I do to pay the bills these days, I figured let's dig a little something out of the cupboard that I've been meaning to make a video about for who knows how long. I don't even remember how long this thing's been sitting, but it's been sitting long enough to collect some dust. But this is an Aldi Crofton water filter pitcher. Supposed to be Aldi's answer to like a Brita pitcher or something like that, but filtered water is something that I kind of started messing around with when the water at the last place I had before this geek house actually wasn't as refreshing as it could be because of the chemicals that were in it that were really throwing off the taste. That is not as much of an issue here, surprisingly. In the more built-up area, the water's better. But anyways, I am going to compare this Crofton thingy from Aldi versus the Nerds water pitcher, ZeroWater. Why do I call it the Nerds water pitcher? Because when I bought this, it came with a thing for detecting dissolved solids in the water. So they call it ZeroWater because when it's filtered through the more expensive, more stage filters in these things, it's supposed to get the solids down to 0 on this blue thing, and then you can compare everything else to that as a baseline. So yeah, it's the Nerds water pitcher for people that, you know, like comparing numbers and stuff. Although I want to not only compare the numbers, I want to be realistic here. Fortunately, after a couple of years of this thing still works, but just barely. I think the battery might be getting ready to go dead in this thing. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take this thing out of the box, finally, after however long it's been, this thing's been in the box, and we're gonna compare it to a few things. First, I know the ZeroWater can get everything down to 0. I wanna see how well the filter's doing, because I haven't poured any water from this thing in a long time. And I also have my water bottle from the new job that still has water from one of those water filtration companies that has like, check us out, we filter all this stuff out, then we UV ray blast it, blah 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 blah, we're a great filtered water solution, da-de-da-de-da. But I can still taste that the water isn't as, well, watery as it should be. So I'm curious what the number is for the stuff from the 9 to 5 as well. And of course I've taken the big beer mug from Oktoberfest Jay and I filled it up with tap water to use as the control. So first order of business, let's get the Crofton out of the box. So here's what we have to play with here. This is the Crofton pitcher, very, very skinny compared to the ZeroWater. Probably nowhere near as heavy to carry once it finishes filtering what I poured in there. So I rinse it out like you're supposed to do for the first time, and there's actually some very specific instructions like soak the filter for 10 minutes and stuff like that. For now, for the first comparison, I basically just put the filter in and ran some water through it. I don't even know if it's in there correctly. But basically what we're looking at here to begin with is someone buys this at the store and they just put it together and go. What kind of numbers do they get? And then we could always try, you know, following the directions a little more strictly to see how much better the numbers get. So I don't even know if it's sealed in there correctly because the instructions just said to push down on the filter until the rubber around the edge is made for a proper seal. So I don't know if water might be leaking past the filter or something like that too, but it's almost done getting filtered up, so it's a lot faster than the Zero, so I expect the numbers to be a lot closer to the control in this case. Speaking of control, straight from the tap, we get 175 parts per million in terms of dissolved solids. So this is the baseline right here. So coming out, that's actually worse than the last place I was at. That would normally get like 80 to 120, but it doesn't taste as chemically altered as it doesn't taste as chemically altered as the stuff. But water is supposed to taste like water, so when it doesn't taste like water, I kind of sort of want to filter it. So there's the control, the high 100s. Let's let this dry off and let's try it again on the water from the 9 to 5. Okay, let's see what we get. The company that sells the special water coolers that filter water on the spot brag about how they UV treat it. They do all this stuff, and it gets it down into the 120s. I knew there was something in there, because it doesn't taste entirely like water. It tastes like there's still something in there, so yay! But hey, it's still water, and it's still better off than the untreated tap stuff. Although I am curious now as to what the tap water at the 9 to 5 is. I might fill this thing up with water from the sink for a later comparison. After the shift tonight. Nerd picture time! Let's see if I can pour this while holding a camera without spilling water all over the place. This has been sitting for a while, but the filter I know has gotten things all the way down to 0, as the ZeroWater name might say. 1. Now, I don't know if this thing is rigged to give best results from the ZeroWater filter or whatnot, but yeah, it's still doing its job, and I'll bet any money this water tastes more like water than the tap water or the stuff from the 9 to 5. Let's give it a taste. Nice, liquid nothing, versus from the tap. Treatment chemicals definitely can taste something in there, but not as liquid nothing. Heck, it's even foggier than the stuff from the... And let's try the 9 to 5 stuff. Ugh, tastes like there's some kind of sediment in there, but oh boy. Now I want to go get some water from the sink after the shift tonight. Okay, the Crofton's done, and now the ZeroWater is filtering the stuff that came out of the tap earlier. Let's compare. And of course, I am doing this in order based on the stuff with the most in it and stuff with the least in it. So if we fill this thing all the way up, that uses almost all the water in the pitcher. Maybe this one's a little too small. Okay, let's see what we got here. Now we got high 1s with the tap water, and then the 0 gets it down to 0. The Crofton barely brings it down. So if you don't follow the directions, needless to say, you barely get any results. So folks, when you buy stuff like this, I'll bet any money there's water that was leaking past the filter. So now let's, we're gonna have to actually follow the directions to get this thing working 100%, and I can even see the fogginess in the water. So, yeah, let's follow the directions. Okay, so you're supposed to soak the new filter in cold water for 10 minutes, and then hold it under running water for 10 seconds, and then press it down into the bottom of the filter to ensure a tight seal. Okay. Start a 10-minute timer.
Sure, 10 minutes. Starting now.
While that's soaking, the hot water in this place always seemed to be extra cloudy, so let's see why. Whoa! 333 parts per million! What is in that hot water tank? Well, time's up. To the sink with this thing! All set. Okay, we've done 10 minutes soaking in cold water plus 10 seconds under running cold water and then pressed it firmly into place, but I still think that there's a little bit of water that's leaking past the seal, and that's why the numbers are so high. Now, the difference between the Crofton just press down and hope it sticks design and the Zero is that the Zero's filters actually screw into place. So you just a little quarter turn and boom, the rubber is pushed down and stuff doesn't leak past the filter. I got a feeling that a few too many corners were cut from this for it to ever have competent numbers, even compared to a Brita at this point. So, I don't know. We're going to give it one more shot, and for the benefit of the doubt's sake, we're going to wait until everything finishes filtering before trying to pour something out. Which should be another minute or two, and we'll see how much better the numbers have gotten, versus the baseline of the high 100s that we got from the cold water tap all by itself. Okay, the filter is running out of stuff to filter, so this is probably the closest we're going to get. There's still activity on the bottom of the filter, but I just don't like the design. Anyways, let's see how much better it did. That does look a lot clearer now that I've actually followed the directions. I still think the Zero is going to give me the best results, though, although it does filter very, very slowly. So, parts per million in the Crofton after actually following the directions. Remember last time we barely got any improvement. We are now in the... Yeah, I think I'm not keeping this thing. 148 parts per million. which is barely better than the stock tap water coming out of the tap, and I think it has to do with the mechanical design, because you're supposed to press the filter down. I pressed that thing down really hard, but the rubber just didn't make a good seal, so there was probably stuff leaking past the filter. Here it is from the directions. Soak for 10 minutes, run it under water for 10 seconds, and then press the filter firmly down to ensure a tight seal. But step 3 is to actually fill the pitcher 3 times and dump it out 3 times. Okay, let's fill this and completely dump it out another time, and then fill it back up and see what happens. Giving this thing the mega benefit of the doubt here. This is now fill up number 3 after dump outs 1 and 2, and I still see water leaking past the filter, so I don't think the design of this thing is going to cut it, and I don't think the numbers are going to be very good, even though I followed the directions now, and I certainly pushed down on that filter enough. The thing is, just by having to do these workarounds, it's already higher maintenance and more of a hassle than the Zero has been. And I also confirmed from looking through the directions that when the date on the filter life indicator is reached, that's what that little readout is on top of the thing, by the way. It's a 70-day timer to let you know when to replace the filter. Replace the filter by following steps 2 and 3 in the installation section. So the 3 dump outs are the charm, is something you have to do every time you buy a filter for this thing. Whereas with the Zero, you just put the new filter in, and your number goes back down to 0. Simple as that. Maybe there's some directions I'm not following with the Zero, I don't know. But it's just been simpler, both to set up and to maintain, than this thing has been. Okay, last chance. This is the final number from the Crofton pitcher before I head out to work for the night. Maybe I'll stop and pick up a Brita on the way home. I'll compare a few things. I don't know, but I just don't think the design of this is really up to snuff in terms of the filters should bolt into place and stuff. Moment of truth! 157. So even when I follow the directions, unfortunately, you can't just push down the filter and hope that it makes a tight seal. It's got to be something that's more mechanically sound than that. I'll bet any money that this is barely doing anything to the tap water, knocking off like 20 points or so, simply due to the fact, I mean, it brings it down to the level of that UV filter and whatnot. The industrial folks are like, oh yeah, we'll filter out your industrial water, blah blah blah. So I think really what this all boils down to is just this whole push it down and hope it makes a good seal element here. I really think that if water could just go through the filter without leaking past it, we get much better results. But just from my experience with this thing, it's just too many workarounds, too many extra steps, and it's just too complicated, really, to get it working 100% versus the Zero, where the filter, yeah, it's more expensive, but it bolts into place. You just give it a quarter turn and boom, tight seal, you're good to go. And just like that, it's the next day, aka everybody else's Monday. I think I can lay off some of the caffeine I'm drinking in the middle of the shift at this place. I don't think I need it as much as I used to. Alright, so I did manage to get some regular old industrial park tap water in this thing before leaving for the night as the chair creaks away, and I went and checked out on the way home. Of course, 24-hour Walmarts are awesome for night shift folks, because you pretty much have the store to yourself. It's not at all like going to that place during the day. I went and checked out the Brita pitchers, and this whole push the filter down and hope it makes a good seal apparently seems to be a regular thing with a lot of these water pitchers these days, because the regular Britas had that exact same issue. So I picked up one of these Brita water bottles, just for the heck of it. We'll try this one at least and see what happens with the TDS meter. For now, though, let's check out some of this industrial park tap water. Uh-oh. On. I think this thing's almost dead after a couple of years of use. What the? 120? Oh man, what an embarrassment for that water cooler vendor. Oh yeah, UV ray is active with filters. And not only that, but the industrial park's tap water has less parts per million in it than the residential tap water here. Oh man. If the maintenance manager ever sees this, maybe he'll be cracking up as much as it... Okay, loud diesel trucks. That's how you know it's daytime on a Monday. So here's the filtered Brita doohickey, the sport bottle. I do not buy hard plastic water bottles because one drop to the concrete and it's all over. So let's see how well this works. BPA free, blah blah, reduces chlorine, dishwasher safe. Squeeze 1 full bottle of water through the filter before use to remove black carbon dust. I don't really care if I get a little bit of carbon dust in the water the first time through, but we'll do that anyways, just to see what the total dissolved solids get down to. Let's see how this thing goes together. So here's what we have to play with here. A slightly better design because it's actually made to filter as you drink, so the water's coming the other way. So you take this, jam that in there, and basically it renders the whole point about water leaking past the filter moot, because you gotta jam that in and stuff along those lines. But black carbon filter, no dust, a little bit of dust there. We'll follow the directions and squeeze a little bit of, squeeze a full bottle's worth of water through it from the tap here, and then put some of that through it and see how much. Actually, no, let's fill it up here. Actually, no, this is more in line with the sort of stuff I would have at this place. So let's follow the directions and see how much that 120 parts per million from the tap water at that place comes down when it goes through this bottle. Sorry, I'm still waiting for the coffee to kick in, even though it's 1 something in the afternoon. What time is it?
1:10.
Bada bing. Oh man, am I glad I followed the directions. The first squeeze through to get all the dust, the loose dust out of the filter, the water coming out looked like motor oil, and then it changed back to its normal color. So that's why you want to follow the directions with stuff like this. Okay, let's, probably, can I do this one-handed without getting a funnel? Probably not. But let's pour some of this industrial park tap water into here and see what kind of results we'll get with this filter. Okay, far less stuff there now. Let's put this thing back on. I was hoping I could end up with some kind of squeeze bottle anyways, but okay, so we know 120 parts per million when it comes out of the tap. I'm also, maybe I should put some residential tap water through here too. Well, actually, yeah, well, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, right? So let's see here. Yeah, make sure this is on really tight. I wouldn't want to spill water over all the electronics, particularly rubbish that's hiding out over there. Still gotta find that code to get that working and whatnot. All right, let's squeeze out some water here, and let's no longer looking like motor oil. And let's put the meter to it. Come on, beer mug. Ugh. This actually is harder than it looks because the water does have to go through that filter. So actually gotta change the grip on it. Yeah. So yeah, well, we are forcing it through a rather rudimentary water filter here or something. Man, maybe I should just keep drinking the unfiltered stuff. But I did want the squeeze bottle. Yeah, finally. Quite a workout. It's like the kind of thing you would do if you wanted to start playing guitar. Okay, parts per million through a Brita filter in a sports bottle. What do we have for a number? 135. How did it actually get worse?
Epic fail.
I don't get it. I really don't. It's... What does it taste like? I think the issue here actually is that this total dissolved solids thing is a marketing thing. If you ever see a ZeroWater pitcher do its thing, it is much, much slower than most other pitchers. I think what's going on here is the filters and something like that would be more for any chemicals that were left in the water rather than any solids or anything. I mean, you saw how quickly that squirted through, even though I had to put some effort into squirting the water through there. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's not really, doesn't taste, the water around here doesn't taste very chemical-ish. It's not like city water or anything, at home or at work. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little too paranoid with this filtery type stuff, and maybe I should just, yeah. And the same thing, too, with the UV thing. with the vendor that sells us those coolers and whatnot. There is like UV treatment or something like that, but I don't think it's to remove anything from like any residue from like the pipes or anything that might be in the water until the pipes are properly flushed or something along those lines. So, yeah, I think it's a difference in the types of filters that are in play here. Let's check the manual for the squeeze bottle. Okay, I filled this with water from the tap and took a drink of the tap water, and it does taste a little bit chemically, but not as chemically treated as the stuff where I came from, strangely enough, as I mentioned earlier. So, we know that maybe solids are not a thing that these filters are good at, but let's see if this neutralizes the taste of the tap water here. Ah. Maybe the dust of the... Ugh, yuck! Maybe the dust of the carbon filter needs to be, anyways, maybe the dust of the carbon filter needs to be squeezed out a little more, or something like that. That actually tastes worse. I don't know. Anyways, I think I'll stick with the stuff as is. Okay, so that thing's ready to go with water from the Zero, which I've poured some into the top, and you're going to be able to watch through this in the outro how slowly this fills back up. But notice the design here. Big, huge filter, and it screws into place. You can actually see the rubber making a proper seal there. And it'd be pretty easy to see if the filter was leaking, because there would be a... Yeah, so... Anyways, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the Brita bottle dry out and then just put it in the cupboard. If I ever am going to go somewhere where there's city water or water that tastes funny, I might bring that with me. But as it stands right now, I think a lot of what's ruined this little experiment is that the water around here doesn't taste like city water or all that chemical-ish. So it's almost not even worth it to filter anything. However, there is something in the water because my coffee tasted a little different when I made it with ZeroWater this morning instead of the stuff straight out of the tap. I also think it might be a marketing thing too in terms of removing the dissolved solids from the water and instead of just filtering out some chemicals. And by the way, I did run a water test kit at one point on the water at this place, and it didn't test high in anything chemical-wise. So I might not be the right person to do this kind of comparison. Regardless, though, I'm a nerd. So comparing all these numbers is just the sort of thing a nerd like me would eventually have done anyways. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.
Give it one more chance.